times.
So first step is to guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
see, that's the way to go. Let's do it that way. So now I just need to. How do I?
Press present.
Yeah. So how do you? Could you?
Do you want to present it over there?
Yeah, please present it over there.
Which one is the present? Oh, it's actually up.
So, yeah, but you need to get it back. To, oh,
It's gonna appear only up there.
that's awesome. You'll have
Do
to.
you want to change it? Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So you'll have to help me again in a minute when we get to some
No,
other
we'll just
things.
change this. Hold on.
Oh, you can do that. That's great. Hey.
Okay, now we want. Is it PowerPoint?
It was no. It was Google.
Chrome, this one? Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I'm here for SIGPLAN. You know SIGPLAN is the umbrella. Splash is under the umbrella. ICFP, POPL, PLDI. We are kind of the umbrella under ACM for programming languages. And I'm the chair. Benjamin Pierce is the vice chair. We have an executive committee. Emery Berger is there. Mira Missini. Peter Thiemann, where are you? Our former vice chair. And Jeff Foster was here yesterday. And I plainly want to convince you that SIGPLAN does a lot of good for the community. And I just want to go over 3 points. SIGPLAN actually spends a lot of its money on students. SIGPLAN gives out awards, as you saw, and we have some exciting new stuff going on. So I just want to touch on those. So we get income from conferences. So the truth is that many of the SIGPLAN conferences give a surplus. And one of the reasons is plainly that ACM requires the conference chair to be conservative with the money. And the surplus that often comes in, we spend a lot of it on students. Of course, we also get money from membership dues. Let me take the chance to put in a plug for become a member of SIGPLAN. It's really $25 that you spend on investing in the community. And you can see where the money goes. It goes to students. And in any event, the first time you register for a conference that year, you get the money back because we give you a discount. But the way we spend money on students, we spend about $200,000 a year on particularly travel grants, so that students can travel to conferences, particularly students who wouldn't have a chance to go otherwise. We have every one of Splash, as it was yesterday. We have PLMW. We also have that at POPL, PLDI, and ICFP. And so typically 40 students, in many cases undergraduate students, sometimes graduate students, get to go and get some mentoring. Find out whether it's worth it to go to graduate school. And we try to get involvement from minorities, underrepresented communities as much as we can, and see if we can broaden participation in programming languages. And we also fund summer schools. So particularly, of course, the Oregon Summer School and other ones, other activities too. And then you noticed we have live streaming. There's live streaming on the internet. The videos will be stored on YouTube. And that is also true for all of our conferences. And as they explained, we have gold open access. And so it means all the papers are available, no fee, no paywall. And as you've noticed, many of you who are authors in one conference or the other, we ask the authors to pay a fee for gold open access. And we're always hoping that the ones from the big famous companies who have lots of money, that they will pay for their authors. But for all the other ones who are poor academics like me, SIGPLAN will pay. And then that way, all our papers, whether the author pays or not, will be gold open access. And then finally, a big thanks to Annabelle, who's not even in the room, our conference manager who's making everything happen. I talk to her every week to make sure that all our conferences are on track, and she's doing a phenomenal job. So that is where we spend our money. Now let me move on to my second point, awards. So you already saw Mira give out 2 awards. We have lots of them. Let me just mention a few that we gave out this year, in addition to the ones that you saw in person. Tom Reps got the Programming Languages Achievement Award, of course, much deserved. And Sina Ariola got the Distinguished Service Award, in particular for the Oregon Programming Languages Summer School. Many other awards. Those awards all have deadlines January 15. So now is the perfect time, November 7. Go find somebody to nominate. Send in your nomination letters. We get a good number of nominations every year, not too many. I think we should get more because there's a lot of excellence in this community. We should celebrate the excellence. These awards are there to celebrate excellence, and we need your nominations. The committee is not sitting and making stuff up. They want your nominations, and then they pick whatever they think is the best one this year. And then one more thing under excellence. CICM highlights. So many of you will remember there was a time when CICM did not have research highlights. And when they got it, about, I guess, is it 10 years ago at this point? Does that sound right? SIGPLAN jumped on it. We've immediately formed a committee for nominating papers. So we are sure that there are always SIGPLAN papers in the pipeline, including, over these years, 7 UPSLA papers that got in the pipeline and got forwarded. And I can tell you, 50% of all the papers SIGPLAN has forwarded, 50% of those papers have appeared in CICM as research highlights, including 3 of those 7 UPSLA papers. So right around the average of everything SIGPLAN highlights. And everyone can nominate to the committee. Nominate papers, or plainly just get your papers into our conferences, and they will be automatically considered by the SIGPLAN pipeline. So that's about awards. And then finally, something about new initiatives. We're going to have a little bit longer session about this. First, about history of programming languages. So you know, 1978, the first History of Programming Languages conference was in Los Angeles. Jean Sammet was the program chair, and she sadly passed away last year. She was also FOSS in the second History of Programming Languages in 1993, and we had a third one that I got to attend in San Diego in 2007, and we're going to have the 4th one in 2020. And I got to have a sneak preview of the list of papers that are being considered, and I can tell you it's going to be awesome. And one of the things we are working on is, well, there's already videos in the ACM Digital Library for the 2007 one, and it turns out that in Minnesota at the Babbage Institute are boxes in the basement with video and audio from the first one in 78 and the second one in 93. And we are working on get that stuff digitized and added to the stuff that's already in the digital library. Fingers crossed, we'll get it done by 2020. Things take time. So, alrighty. So we have over multiple years at this point, we have a committee on empirical evaluations. Emery Berger is our chair, and he's going to tell you about the guidelines that the committee came up with this year. He will do that in just a minute, because I want to say just a little more. We also have a climate committee chaired by Benjamin Pierce, and Benjamin couldn't be here today, so I'm going to stand in for him and talk a little bit about what the climate committee is doing. And then I just finally want to say, look, SIGPLAN, you can tell what our activities are. We spend our money on students, we give out awards, we celebrate excellence, we have new stuff going on. And as it happens, we are stronger than ever financially. We have the biggest UPSLA ever. I think it's fair to say all our conferences are doing well. And become a SIGPLAN volunteer. I can say for myself, I have been a volunteer for SIGPLAN for a while, and come and enjoy working with great people, exciting people. Just find something that fits you. We have jobs of all kinds, and there will be something for you, and you will get to just be part of the community. SIGPLAN is a joint project. Let's work on this together. And now, let's cover this point and this point. And so I want to, so let's see. Am I right or wrong in that Emery is not the chair of the committee? It is completely wrong. Are you on the committee, Emery?
I'm on the committee.
You are. See, that's the thing. So I looked forward and I saw you. But the truth of the matter is that he is not the chair of the committee. Steve Blackburn is the chair of the committee, and he will give the presentation. And so now we need help with getting Emery's slides in here. So I give the microphone to you, and then we'll solve a technical problem. So please, somebody come and get Emery's slides in there. So I have them on the Mac. Oh, so maybe we can do this ourselves. So let me find this. So how about this? Okay. So first, a big sorry to not recognize that you're chair of the committee, but now I do. And here are the slides. All right, over to you.
All right, thanks very much, Jens. So I'm here to present a very brief report. I don't want to keep you too long from your food and drink. A very brief report on the empirical evaluation subcommittee of SIGPLAN. So Those of you who are planning to submit to PLDI may have seen this. This is the call for papers for PLDI. And if you looked really closely, there was a line down here that pointed out that authors of empirical evaluation papers are encouraged to consider the 7 categories of SIGPLAN empirical evaluation guidelines when preparing their submissions. Some of you may wonder what that's all about. Well, that's what I'm going to talk to you about very briefly now. If you click on that link there, you'll get this, which is a SIGPLAN page, which is the page for our subcommittee. And it presents some information about what we're doing and gives you a checklist there. And I should mention now, after that little thing with Jens about who was chairing, what happened was what happened was that actually I'll put it here in 2017 in August, which is just over a year ago, the SIGPLAN exec decided to set up a committee to look at empirical evaluation in SIGPLAN. And they asked me to chair it, and on the committee is Emery, who's over there, and Mike Hicks, who's not here, I don't believe, and Matthias Hausworth, who's also not here. So the 4 of us met, and we met regularly. It was a very interesting challenge geographically with Matthias in Switzerland and me in Australia and the rest in the US, but we managed, and we met regularly, and we have, what I'm going to report now is what we've produced, and before I do that, you might very well ask, why would we do this? Why would SIGPLAN want to do that? And the basic point is that PL research is often empirically evaluated. Not always, but it's very often evaluated empirically. And there are a number of key questions you need to ask whenever you see an empirical evaluation. And that is, what kind of empirical evidence yields the most reliable conclusions? So what kind of empirical evidence yields the most reliable conclusions? What are the best practices for empirical evaluation in PL research? And do papers in top venues always follow these practices? Okay, so what was our approach? What we did was we started off by collecting a fairly large number of papers from ASPLOS, ICFP, UPSLA, PLDI, and POPL, and then we split them amongst the committee, and we reviewed each of these papers from the standpoint of the empirical evaluation. So these are published papers. These are accepted papers on the public record. We went and had a look through these and started collecting our thoughts on empirical evaluation with respect to these. And we found a lot of issues, perhaps you won't be surprised to hear. And what we did is we noticed there were patterns emerging amongst those issues. And so what we did is we abstracted out those common concerns, and we found, we categorized them in terms of 7 key concerns. And then the next part of the committee's work was to find a way to raise awareness and to encourage best practice. Important to emphasize, our focus here was twofold. We're interested in authors in particular, right? Our first interest really is in authors. So we want to help every author, including ourselves, to raise our awareness about what is good empirical evaluation practice. So that's the first one. The second of all, we want to encourage reviewers to be thoughtful and systematic in their evaluation of empirical evaluations. So when they're reviewing an empirical evaluation, for them to be systematic and thoughtful about it. So what were the 7 concerns? Well, the first was that the claims are clearly stated. Papers usually make a claim and then they have an evaluation to support that claim. But often those claims aren't clearly stated. And if the claims aren't clearly stated, then it's very hard to conclude whether or not the evaluation is actually in support of the claim. So first, it's clearly stated claims. Second is, are the comparisons in the paper suitable given the claim they're making? So they've made a claim. Do their comparisons support that claim? Are they suitable to the claim? Have they made principled choices about their benchmarks? Have they done adequate data analysis? Have they used relevant metrics in their analysis? So they've done some analysis, they've chosen a bunch of metrics. Are they really the right metrics to be using for this analysis? Have they got appropriate and clear experimental design? So is the design of the experiment appropriate to the thing they're trying to evaluate? And is it clearly enough articulated that members of the community can reproduce it and understand it? And finally, appropriate presentation of the results. So do the results accurately reflect what happened? Are they appropriately done? Are they misleading? Right? We don't want results that mislead the community. And then what we did is we took those 7 concerns and we turned them into a checklist. And that checklist, remember, is for authors and for reviewers. So why do we use a checklist? Well, some of you may have heard of the checklist manifesto. The basic idea is that checklists help ensure current accepted best practice is followed. Okay, so we may very well know amongst ourselves what is good practice, but it's easy to forget. And so a checklist helps us remember and be systematic in applying best practice. It's short, it's easy to use, it's printable on a single page, and although it's got a checkbox, you don't need to use that in a binary sense. Most importantly, I want to stress that the checkpoint is meant to support informed judgment. It's not there to supplant the judgment. So it's not a mechanical process where you go and check this and say, oh, there's a red cross there, we'll throw this paper out. It's there to help the reviewers and to help the authors be systematic. So what we then did is we found 22 examples of poor practice. So these are anti-patterns that we discovered were recurrent in this fairly large set of papers that we reviewed from our top conferences. And we produced ourselves a checklist there, so you can see the 7 items, and there are 22 little anti-patterns there. And I'll just highlight at the top there, a reminder right at the top of the thing that this is not to be used in a mechanical way. It's there to support your understanding of empirical evaluation. And then for each of the categories, we have these anti-patterns. And here you can see 2 of the anti-patterns and the detail they provide. And then if you turn the sheet of paper over, there's a whole lot more information there. There are links to resources, because there's a lot of resources online and in other places that support a lot of this, so they're gathered there. And there's an FAQ which responds to a whole lot of the questions that we've received as a committee over the year or so that we've been operating. Okay, so what next? The most important thing is feedback. We depend on and very much want your feedback. I presented essentially the story at the PLDI town hall back in June, and we took this to the PLDI steering committee, and they had some feedback, and we incorporated that feedback in a revised checklist, which is online now. And after those revisions, the PLDI steering committee was happy to make that a recommendation on the call for papers that it be used. And with that, I'll answer questions. I think there's a few minutes to answer some questions if anyone has questions. Yep.
So the FAQ comments that there are no comments in the guidelines related to human factors because there weren't enough papers at the time. Has that changed? It seems like it's changing, and maybe.
That's a great question. So I'll just flip back the slide here. This point here is that it's a living document. Okay, we very much intend it to be a living document. So our view is that as the field shifts, that this document would adjust to reflect that. Okay, and so at the time of writing, which is in the last year, in our analysis of what we saw when we reviewed the top conferences in SIGPLAN, we didn't see enough of that to warrant it being there. But that's not to say it wouldn't be if it became more of a factor. Yep.
Question on evaluation. It's not many times authors are not really clear how they run the course. If I have some JVM, how many times did I run the code? Did I compile every instance? So many times it's not clearly mentioned. If it is mentioned, you could say, hey, you are compiling every method, it's bad. But it's not mentioned, right? And the checklist, we have seen the checklist for, the document has been up for a while, it's really nice. I think we should also have something on what must be specified. If it is not specified.
Okay, that's an interesting question. There's 2 answers to that, 3 answers, I guess. First of all, the artifact evaluation process is complementary to this, and it's a very, very important complement to this. So some of that should come through in the artifact evaluation process. The second point is that one of the points that we raise here is that you need to make your evaluation appropriate and clear. And under clear would be that it be clear enough that someone could do that. And the third point is, and this is also an important one, is that we did not want to be too prescriptive. It's very, very difficult to be prescriptive given the breadth of SIGPLAN. Here we're looking at UPSLA, but this is also ICFP, this is also ASPLOS, it's also PLDI. So we could not, there's a temptation for us who've done a lot of empirical evaluations to enumerate a whole lot of practices which are inadvertently specific to our field, and we've deliberately not done that. We've lifted the level of abstraction a little higher. So we couldn't go into that detail, but rather we point to things like your evaluation must be clear so that other people can reproduce it. Doug?
Here's a reminder. Next time the ACM curriculum section on evaluation comes up for revision, you should be ready.
Thanks, Doug.
So that students are taught to do this long before their backs are to the wall.
Right. Well, I have my own students have started really liking this, both undergraduates and graduates, and I've had a lot of feedback from the community that one of the most heavy uses of this is sharing it with graduate students. Yeah, Ben.
So how much of what you looked at is related to performance evaluation versus, say, finding bugs? Seems like finding bugs is a very different process, right?
We tried not to bias in that respect, like I answered previously. We tried to lift our level of abstraction above that, and we also tried to defend against that possibility by basing our what we've done here on a review of a whole lot of papers from all the top conferences in SIGPLAN. So whether or not we were successful is a matter of, you can make the judgment, Ben, but we did try to defend against that possibility, and we're aware of that problem.
Are you seeing a scenario where there will be many specializations of this abstract
That does seem possible. Certainly other fields have already shown interest in this, like the architects and other fields like that. So I can certainly see this being replicated in those communities, and their checklists would probably look different. And certainly their anti-patterns would look different, because the anti-patterns are fairly specific. But I'm not sure whether the high-level points would. Within SIGPLAN, I don't think so. Probably not. I think our goal was to make a simple one-page thing for everyone in SIGPLAN. So we don't expect to be bifurcating within SIGPLAN.
This is a great effort. Is there any similar effort underway, or people starting to talk about proof artifact strategy?
Yeah, great question. So proof artifacts. I don't know, Derek. But I think some of the principles here apply directly to that. Others do not. Yeah, I think so. I think that's quite possible. Yeah, good question. A volunteer? Was there another question? Yep. Good. All right. I think we've got time for one last question here. No? Is there a question there? All right. If not, thank you very much. Oh, Emery, do you want to say something? Go ahead. I neglected to mention that I was planning to print them out in time to distribute tomorrow. Emery asked the question, who would like one if we had them? Ross? Yeah, thanks, Ross.
Thank you to the rightful chair of the committee. I use those guidelines. Those papers I've submitted this fall, I've sat with my nose. I was at PLI. I got the laminated copy, first edition. I have it in my room, and I use it. It's really good. I totally recommend it. But how would you? Oh, on the laminated copy, I don't know. But let me see. So where did my slides go? They're hopefully hiding behind here. Oh, here we go, somewhere here. Let me see. My slides are somewhere, but where? Here. No, but these are different. I need to switch to these. Aha. Okay. So the globe is warming. Present. So where do I click present? There. Oh, there's like this big thing. Okay. All right. So this is a chart. The planet is warming. The planet is warming because of human activity, greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, and it's getting hot out there. And maybe you saw this fall, United Nations released a report that says that we got to decrease carbon emission by 40% by 2030. 40% by 2030. That's 12 years from now. And really just want to ask the question whether ACM can play its part in this. And so as it happens, SIGPLAN has a climate committee. Benjamin Pierce is the chair, and there's the committee. Michael Hicks is also the former chair of SIGPLAN, Krista Lopes, and Benjamin Pierce and I. And so we have been thinking about how to respond to climate change for a while, and now we can just zoom in on this question on whether ACM and whether SIGPLAN can play its part in decreasing carbon emission by 40% by 2030. And I just want to say three things about this. So the first of all, it's very easy to see what the main problem is. The main problem is air travel. And the second thing is we can totally think about air travel to conferences, because we can think about many things about these conferences. We can make it easier to get to them. We can make it easier to offset the travel to them. And then the third thing is, in the internet age, we can totally think about maybe not always having to go. I just want to talk about these things. So look, this is my carbon footprint right there. It's very easy to see that the big chunk of it is air travel, and then there are other things like carbon emission having to do with the home and food and goods and services. But really, it's all over here. That's travel. And so if I could just stay home, we could cut my carbon emission by 40% right there. That would solve it. And so we can talk about the other things as well, but it's such an easy one. That's the common case, right? So let me just talk about that. And so that brings me to the second point about conference travel, because really most of my air travel is to conferences. Let's face it. And so what can we do? So first of all, here's Uppsala. It's in Boston. There was more than 100 people who registered on site because they are local and that's what they did, right? There are lots of local people, and I think there's a lesson here, which is let's think more about locating conferences in places where there's a big local potential attendee contingency, and we can totally think about that, and we can think about it more than we do now. That will in itself decrease air travel, because those people can come here without that. The second thing is easy things like maybe there are some big meetings and some small meetings, and maybe if we could co-locate more of those, maybe we can just go one time instead of going to multiple meetings. That's the second thing that people keep talking about, and sometimes I want to go to two conferences, I end up going to one. Sometimes I go to one conference and I go to a small meeting somewhere. I would much rather have that it all happened in the same week and I could go on one flight. That would be a second way to at least cut down on some travel. Third thing is the offset part, which is there is a concept of carbon offsets out there, which basically is something like this. On my flight from Los Angeles to Boston, I burn some carbon. If I would pay something like $30 to somebody who plants trees, that would plant enough trees, I guess. That would totally offset the carbon. So carbon emitted, carbon sort of trees doing their thing, and that would offset. And so those are free considerations we can work on today, and do better with our carbon emissions. And I think that there's quite a bit that can be done there to get us the 40%. Certainly when we have 12 years to do it, I think we can do it. Third thing I want to talk about is, we have live streaming. And so there will be people at home sitting and watching our conference. And some other conferences, not ours, but Kai, for example, they have telepresence robots. They're little robots roaming around the conference and participating that way. We could have that too. There could be other ways we could participate. Of course, we have Slido for asking questions, so that people out there are really integrated into the experience. And maybe we just simply don't have to go as often. Maybe we should start to think about fully virtual conferences where it's just like a Skype call, except that we would have hundreds of people on the call instead. So we all participate in Skype calls, and maybe we should every once in a while have a fully virtual conference. And then one last thing that SIGPLAN is pushing, which is totally virtual PC meetings. So I think let's go over it. Popple had a fully virtual PC meeting this year. What about Uppsala? eCoop had a fully virtual but co-located with PLI, right? So we pick up on the co-location idea right there, and it's sort of sweeping over. Every time Benjamin Pierce, our vice chair, is working with conference program committees, he's saying, oh, by the way, could you please consider having a virtual PC meeting? And sometimes they do it, as you can tell. It's coming. I did a poll of all the ACM 6. At this point, virtual PC meetings actually win over the the other ones for all the main conferences that SIGPLAN has. And it's growing. It's clearly growing. So that's pretty much what I want to say. So ACM, really believe that ACM can do its part in decreasing by 40% the carbon emissions by 2030, and we have just obvious things we can work on. And so SIGPLAN has its committee. We are working on it. And so I just want to say to you, spread the word, think about it. When you organize conferences, please think about it. And sometimes consider whether you can attend an interesting conference online instead of going there. And then please experiment whenever you can. SIGPLAN wants to experiment with carbon offsets. I sat next to Benjamin Pierce at the SIG governing board meeting in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, where the ACM president and the ACM CEO were there, and the other ACM leadership, and just about every single ACM SIG voted in sort of informally for um, some kind of go ahead with let's do some experiments. Let's allow experiments with offsets. And we just found a lot of support. That's at least that was my reading of the room. And so I hope you will support us too. Thank you. Okay, so questions from Ben, and another Ben, and Krishna, and Jonathan.
One thing I would point out is that as much as air travel, is a big factor, cloud computing is probably a much bigger factor.
Aha.
Especially cloud computing. So another strategy here, totally independent of what you're suggesting, is to try to incentivize people reducing the amount or the amount of energy consumed by cloud computing. And you can just focus on Bitcoin or blockchain as a target. It seems like that's a much more cost-effective way. And you can have a big financial incentive. You can say the best paper of the year that shows up in PLDI that reduces the energy cost of blockchain or whatever gets $10,000, right? That would be, I think, a better, more cost-effective way to achieve this goal.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good comment. That's a very good comment.
Somebody would break Sean. That would help a lot.
Okay.
So I have two things. One, I think video conferencing software is getting really good. So Zoom in particular is what we use for WebAssembly CG meetings. We have these every week, and there's like 30 people there. It actually works really well. I mean, we still have in-person meetings every 3 months, but that works really well. The co-locating thing I think is really important, and I would like to make an advertisement, considering we're getting cool, that's very appropriate. Next year's an FCRC year for PLDI, and please submit workshops and tutorials. So I'm the chair for that. You can send an email to me, propose a workshop or tutorial, and locate it at FCRC would be great.
Very good. Krishna?
So, one bullet, two words. So while the carbon footprint is an important target for having these virtual meetings, it will also help a lot in having a more diverse community. So, for instance, flying from, say, India or China, the distance is a lot and it costs a hell. And bomb, I mean, shit, you don't want to use the word hell. And having virtual meetings, I think we will have a lot more participation from the students from these places where flying is very, very expensive.
It's a very good point.
And so, yes, carbon footprint is a great target, but I think the proposals we are doing can have wider positive.
Very good. Jonathan?
I'd like to echo and reemphasize what Ben said. I think these initiatives are great. I think the biggest way that we can have an impact on the world is actually through great research that shows how computers can reduce energy usage. So we should definitely be doing that and encouraging that. And we should make sure that we continue to promote excellence through whatever we do.
Absolutely.
And actually, I also really like the idea of co-locating more of the top PL conferences. I think we have to do that in a way that preserves the varieties of community that we have. So it's a little tricky.
Yeah.
But that is a way of saving our own carbon footprint and also enhancing the research because we all are in one place.
Mm-hmm. Doug?
In case anyone hasn't heard me say this several times before, I think one problem that people talk about with lack of face-to-face PC meetings is a culturalization of younger PC members, and which is an issue. And there's an easy solution to that. If you're not going to require people to go to a PC meeting, require that they go to the conference. Period.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Other comments? Please.
So I don't know if that chart is real or just a pictorial, but I can give you some real numbers.
Yeah.
My university, EPFL, actually did a study of where the energy consumption went and the carbon emission.
Mm-hmm.
So a third of it was actually just the university, things like the lights, the power, the computers of the university.
Mm-hmm.
A third of it was transportation
Mm-hmm.
back and forth to the university of 15,000 people every day.
Mm-hmm.
And the other third was air travel.
Mm-hmm.
So air travel is incredibly significant
Mm-hmm.
in professional
Mm-hmm.
academic communities. Most of it went to professors and grad students.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're in Europe where you can take trains, but people still fly all around the world.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a significant problem. It's a lot more significant than Boston even,
Yeah.
or in our community.
And there are online carbon calculators out there where we can sort of individually try to do this kind of calculation. Yep, Thomas, and
Yeah, let
then.
me just add what Jim was saying. And our government has decided that all federal institutions cut down on CO2 emission. So we are under strict rule to kind of reduce it, and we are not allowed to compensate.
Yeah.
We're supposed to really reduce. And
Yes.
that's going to be, in the long run, going to be a problem if we want to continue to go to conferences, want to continue to send grad students to conferences. That's going to be a problem.
Yes. I can say for UCLA that we have a commitment, and I think we will achieve it, to be carbon neutral by 2025. But that will not include the air travel. That's the thing. This, like, the internal operation will be carbon neutral. And as you said, transportation plus air travel, that's 2/3, if I understood correctly. Emery?
Right. So, so a couple things. So I can't read the negative there here. I apologize. So that according to the IPCC, the total impact on carbon emission, carbon, greenhouse gases, et cetera, of air travel is 3.5%. So it is true that at a university it might be a third, and for you personally it might be a third or 40% or more, but that's not the world. So if we remove all air travel, we'll remove 3.5% of total carbon emissions. So I just want to, it's totally fine for us to do these initiatives, but I don't want people to walk away with the wrong impression that we're going to have this gigantic outsized impact, because we're not. The other thing that is, I think, something that we should consider carefully. So, of course, selfishly, I live in the United States. I happen to live in the Northeast. More conferences in Boston, awesome. Although this year I'm living in Seattle, but that didn't work out so well. But anyway, but there are people all over the world who we would like to bring into the computer science fold, to programming languages. There are people doing research already all over the world. And if we don't have conferences, like, the most carbon efficient thing for us to do in terms of conference location is like having them at O'Hare Airport. Okay? And that's just a fact. And so that sucks. It sucks for everybody who doesn't live in Chicago. Probably sucks for them too. But it especially is bad if we want to continue to have this presence and reach out to China, to India, and so on. So I think we should be careful about making big wholesale decisions like conference placement. At least enter into it with our eyes wide open, because this can have a big impact.
So as it happens, the SIG governing board meeting was in Chicago O'Hare Airport. I think it always is there. Maybe they know something then.
Test Launch 2020, likely to be in Chicago.
In the airport. Not.
We
Other.
put in a request.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Yes. Yeah, please.
I just wanted to say, you mentioned things like fully virtual conferences, which is very ambitious, great, but I feel like there is some middle ground that we're missing. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that we currently require is that at least one of the authors have to attend the
Mm-hmm.
conference.
Mm-hmm.
And so traditionally this was to secure funds for the conference through registration.
Mm-hmm.
And since, like mentioned, we already have great software for remote presentation, why
Mm-hmm.
don't we give the authors that option, provided that
Uh-huh.
they would provide the funds through registration.
Mm-hmm.
So make them pay so that the conference has enough funding, but don't make them come to the conference
Aha.
50% and pay.
Aha.
So,
That is a thought. Manu, reaction?
we didn't say anything explicit, but we never actually explicitly said it was a requirement for an author to be present here at UPSLA. And part of this is the PACMPL
Mm-hmm.
transition, where formally these are journal papers, and this is just the conference where people can present the papers. But we could be more explicit and say you're not required
But it wasn't a requirement this year.
Let me
Uh,
I just want to say I think it's a terrible, terrible idea. Please don't do that.
Steve.
Yeah, I just want to end on a positive note and reflect on what Ben said and what Jonathan said about the idea of having prizes for energy efficient research. So I think we can really contribute a lot there.
Hmm? Philip.
Okay. Computer science is unique in all academic fields, not just STEM, in that we do conferences and we associate most of our publications with conferences. So, I mean, my wife's a sociologist, she publishes in journals, and one time a year she goes to the meeting of the American Sociological Association, where all subfields come together and occupy 5 hotels in a downtown, right? So it's like FCRC to the nth degree with everything. It would be too radical to suggest computer science just make that change right now, but maybe would it be possible to figure out the carbon footprint of a sociologist or
Hmm.
an English professor, let's say, and compare that to yours?
Oh, sure we could. Any final comment? Any final suggestion? All right. Thank you very much all for coming.